Hey, it's Fayd. I'm just going to talk about this Revenant update in Warframe because I wanted to make a video and my puppy's sleeping and Dauntless is doing nothing right now. So, yeah. As far as the gun is concerned, I really like it. I could probably put a better build on here. I'm not a build wizard, but this is what I'm using and it works well for me. I don't know what else I could put on here that would be better, actually, because the blast is actually, it's very nice. And the loss of accuracy with the secondary fire, if it actually does reduce accuracy, which is really hard to tell, is totally worth it. Actually, it's actually a benefit, and it helps you with your primary. You get more of a beam, I believe. So vicious spread is great. And then I just wanted more corrosive than anything else, so I weighted it towards corrosive. But yeah, I mean that's about it. It's not like rocket science build. So I'm going to show that real quick. And I'm using invulnerability right now, but you should notice that I probably won't even lose all my stacks. So I lost 1 stack so far. And this is what this gun does. This is kind of what it's supposed to be, in my opinion. I don't see this weapon being like used for single target DPS. I see it as like Sonicor 10.0. You know, I mean it just demolishes groups of enemies. They murder each other. And that's that, right? Now, as far as the primary fire is concerned, I think it's very good. And notice I still have 1 stack left. I know it says 0, but that's a lie. Just ignore it. It's incorrect. You'll see he just took damage. He's stunned. So the 1, like, yeah, it's a thing. It's good, but this is for fodder. Definitely a fodder ability, like, or attack. It's not for killing, like, you know, it'll strip armor, it'll kill things, but it's not the damage output or the safety that the 2 is. It's very close range, and the second ability on this gun, the secondary fire, is just so much better for long range. That being said, I should explain how this works. If you just shoot like the fastest burst you can with the secondary, it spawns like a couple of these little orbs. These things, they fly out and they chase enemies for a certain distance. They're kind of janky. They should be fixed, in my opinion. Like, they should chase enemies better. Sometimes they just fly away instead of acquiring a target. But the more you charge, the more balls you get. And these things proc status, actually, even with a higher base chance than your gun itself. So, yeah, it's insane. And they also need to not prioritize one enemy at a time. Like, they need to go for, like, every enemy, instead of just like targeting like 3 little balls on one dude. But like, as you can see here, they kind of flew away and didn't do much. That's how it is once in a while. And sometimes they all fly back and they all do a lot, and I don't know, they need to fix how those things choose a target, but it's a very good weapon just as is, so I don't have a whole lot of complaints. I think it's the best thing that came out of this update, actually, maybe apart from the armor. So yeah. Now, I'm going to just start ranting for a minute about the abilities and how they should be fixed, because they're not good. This is the build I'm using for the Warframe. I'm going to get a lot of people being like, you don't need range, you don't need, you need all this strength, you don't need duration, whatever, I don't really care. I mean, like, I want the range so I can enthrall things from further away, and, I mean, I'll just do this. You don't really need more strength. These are 120 heavy gunners. Like, they're dead. That's pretty respectable. Most DPS Warframes, like you know, Mesa, Titania, Excalibur, Valkyr, if you know what you're doing with her ultimate. Like, they can do that. Like, there's some Warframes, yeah, they can do that. Mostly exalted weapons. But a lot of DPS Warframes, without like using some sort of like build up, or like Nidus has to build up his damage to be able to kill those things fast or whatever. Like this damage is definitely acceptable. So I might form up for Growing Power unless they fix his 1 in the way that I want them to, because if they do, then Growing Power would be very nice. Or I mean, not very nice. If they don't fix it, Growing Power is good. If they do fix it, Growing Power is bad, basically. But yeah, that's about it. And the reason I'm not using more efficiency, which I would actually suggest normally, is I'm just running energized, so I don't need it. Now, as far as his abilities are concerned, this has a maximum of 4 thralls. In the dev stream, they had 20, which was broken, and I'll explain why that is. There's like a maximum number of spawns on the map at any given time. So let's say you had 4 Revenants, and each one had 20 thralls. If you could even get 20 thralls on all 4 Revenants, that would be questionable. You would end up having like double the number of thralls that there were enemies on the map, which is completely broken, obviously. So I'm glad they fixed that. But I think 4 is far too few, unless they do one of 2 things. So first of all, this needs to have an infinite duration, and you need to be able to take it off of any enemy that you want, and maybe after a number of seconds put it back on that same enemy, or maybe not. That's just an idea, but you need to be able to at least take it off. Because if you enthrall a heavy gunner and then he damages 3 butchers, boom, you have a heavy gunner and 3 butchers. Congratulations. Hope those butchers do you good. That's terrible. This damage per second is just after your target dies, or your thrall dies, basically, and it leaves a little well of damage on the ground. That's awful. Like some people tried to play it off as being decent, but it's so situational that it's not really worth considering. The effect radius is just an AoE stun, or an AoE knockdown, I mean. Basically, what this needs to do is, it needs to be an infinite duration, and this damage either needs to happen to them, not 1,000 damage per second, but there needs to be either constant damage on them as they have the 1, so that let's say you put it on a butcher, he goes and hits a heavy gunner, and then the heavy gunner is enthralled, and then the butcher dies from your dot, and that allows the heavy gunner to then go turn something, and then the heavy gunner will eventually die, and then if he turned a bombard, then the bombard will turn something. So it'll have like a chain reaction of thralls. Even if there's only 4 at any given time, at least there's always 4 thralls, But the fact that you can't choose who you have, and they're not likely to die unless you or your teammates go out of your way to kill them, which, by the way, I don't think you should be able to damage the thralls. I think that they should actually just count as allies, like a Spectre does. And like I said, I think it should be permanent until they die. Or you take your 1 off of them, if you could, which you can't. So the other way that I think they could fix this ability is, if your 4 thralls, again, you could remove it, put it back on, like choose who you want to enthrall, but then your 4 thralls could then temporarily enthrall other enemies with damage. So they don't take damage from your 1, but they can at least temporarily enthrall an enemy for like 10 seconds. And then that enemy maybe couldn't enthrall other enemies, but at least you would have somewhere between 4 and 12 thralls, and that amount would fluctuate. But your core 4 would be your choosing. So you could have 4 Arctic Xmas, like whatever. Yeah, that I think would be good as well. That would probably be my preference, I suppose. And they also need to make it so that these guys are considered allies, meaning corrosive projection will not affect them. The reason for this is that if you take a Warframe like Necros, for instance, corrosive projection doesn't affect his ultimate. And there's so many glitches right now with Necros ulti where you can get like 13 clones and some of them never expire and all that other crap. But because corrosive projection doesn't affect them, if they have armor and enemies don't have armor, if you have 4 CPs in your squad, your clones will scale infinitely. The Necros clones will just rip through everybody. It's like The Walking Dead on steroids. Okay, nothing will survive it. They do tons of damage in high level content because they have a ton of damage and a ton of armor, and nothing else has any armor. It's insane, and people don't even realize that. Hopefully, it doesn't get nerfed and destroyed and whatever. But anyway, it's a very cool synergy with Necros that I think would fit really well in this kit. So now on to number 2, and this ability has the only synergy that he has that isn't detrimental, by the way. Basically, it's just a charge, and each charge stuns an enemy when you take damage from that enemy. And you can only take damage from one thing. So if you get shot by a heavy gunner that's just shooting full auto, right? The first bullet hits you, the heavy gunner's stunned, you don't take any more damage from that heavy gunner. Obviously, they can get unstunned and damage you again, but the other bullets won't hurt you. And they won't remove stacks either. So, I like this ability. I think it's quite good. I think it needs a very fast cast time. It has a very slow cast time. And you need to be able to recast it to refresh your stacks. Those 2 things would fix this ability. I don't think it needs gating. I think that would make it much too strong. But I could see it, even then, maybe being okay. Gotta let the pupper out. But yeah, the second ability I think is good. And when an enemy gets stunned, you can use your 1 for free on them. You can't complain about that. That's a good, useful synergy. Now, the 3 is complete garbage. All it's good for is traveling. There's no point in this ability except moving from point A to point B and not dying. That's all it does. This leeching crap, ignore it. It's bait. It is literal bait. Mesmer skin should be the only method of survival that you have apart from parkour, and maybe Reeve as a mobility skill. But the fact that this is turned into an offensive ability is pure noob bait. Do not do this. It is insanely expensive. It does no damage. This does not ignore armor. So you have to hit a heavy gunner 3 times if it's thralled, like if it's under your 1's influence to kill them with Reeve. And that's supposed to be 40% HP? No, it's not. This needs to basically, like for each enemy hit, give you another stack of your 2, for instance. Or it needs to stun enemies that are hit and open them up to your 1 for free, just like your 2 does. Something along those lines. Because that will create more survivability for you. Whereas your shields and health mean nothing on this Warframe. When your shield depletes, that's how you can get your Mesmer skin back. But even then, this isn't great, because you don't want your Mesmer skin down. This is like a mini quick thinking buff almost. That's like all it is. Like it's enough time to recast something, hopefully. And that won't work if enemies are far away. You're still going to die. So, yeah, I think Reeve just needs a total rework on this synergy thing. It's not even synergy. I think it's left over from when he was supposed to be a vampiric Warframe or whatever. And then Dance Macabre, not Macabre. It's a good ability, actually. It doesn't even need a synergy to be a good ability. Like, it does different statuses depending on enemies. If they have, like, armor or they're just a health bar or their shields, like, it switches to the best element for that. It's amazing. Like, you can actually boost it. Oh, and then there's this synergy where incoming damage is redirected back into beams. This is really, really not true. What it does is, if you take damage, you then do more damage with your ultimate. It doesn't nullify the damage. And it doesn't count that damage if your Mesmer skin blocks it. So basically, if you use your 1 and your 2 is on, you're not getting all the damage from your 1. But if you use your 1 with your 2 off, you're taking damage and you're dead. The only time this can help you is if you're in a small room, your shield is up, you use your 4, everyone falls over and they're dead before they stand back up. Because your 1 killed them. That's the only time that this could ever be helpful for you. Like, No. What this needs to do is whenever an enemy breaks your Mesmer skin or gets hit by your Reeve, then they need to be more susceptible to your 4 for a period of time. And this stupid crap here, where they drop overshields, shields are garbage in this game. End of story. Unless you have a blanket damage reduction, for instance, Trinity's Blessing, Mace's Shatter Shield, that sort of thing, shields are horrible. It's like a really soft spot in the community right now that shield gating is still there. And it shouldn't be, but it is. And overshields are just terrible. That's literally making it take longer for your passive to proc, which is not even a good thing in some cases. And you shouldn't even be down to your shields because you have Mesmer Skin. Like, this passive is literally just there to save your ass if you mess up. That's all it's there for. If you mess up, you shouldn't be using it actively. And you shouldn't be using your shields actively. So this needs to drop stacks of your 2 as well. As your, like, just like I said, the 3 should. The 4 should also do that when a Thrall is killed with it. If you could even kill Thralls with your 4. I'm actually okay with that. But it would be, in my opinion, those temporary Thralls that your permanent Thralls turned. So your permanent Thralls, I don't think you should be able to kill, but I think that the Thralls that they turn, you should be able to kill. Or if you go with the other option of this damages things constantly, you're 1, and so you always have 4 Thralls, but at least they're dying, and then turning others, and then those die, and it's propagating, then killing them, yeah, that's fine. And then you get more stacks of your 2. That could save your life. You know, that's reasonable. But both of those options are good. I just think that the shield is... Almost any shield ability in this game is completely garbage right now, unless you're talking about, like, mid-level star chart content. Anything past that, shields are just horrible. You're talking about a sword, your shields get 1 shot. Newsflash. So, yeah. I'm not impressed with this kit at all. I think they could have done a much better job with it. The only impressive thing about it is, like, the 2 kind of and the 4 kind of. Because, you know, they do damage. And they protect you. That's, well, the 2 protects you, the 4 does damage. Like, but that's all, you know? And they don't do it at the same time as well. So if I take off invincibility, what'll happen here, I'll cast my 2. There's 8 enemies. They're all going to get stunned at some point, okay? So they're not doing damage to me to buff my 4 at all. They can't. And if they could, I'd be dead. You know? And as far as the, you know, the 1 and the 3 are concerned, woot, I'm about to have 4 dudes, you know, big deal. Notice they can't damage him because he's got armor, right? But, woot, look at all that damage I did for, like, you know, 58 energy, all this damage. And I'm killing my allies with this damage, right? Like, why? For health and shields, which I don't even want. Just ridiculous to me that this was somehow thought to be a synergy, right? So yeah, that's my rant about this Warframe and all his crap and, like, how I think they should fix it. And probably nobody's even going to care, but it felt good to get it out. And hello, puppy, she's awake now. So, peace out.